In this video, I want to talk about Richard Avedon. In 1985, Richard Avedon released his seminal body of work entitled In the American West. This was a commissioned body of work that consisted of approximately 120 rather large portraits, all shot on 8x10. What was significant about this is Richard Avedon, who was previously known as photographing celebrities and U.S. presidents, had shifted his work to focus in on people in the American West, namely the working class. The portraits have a beautiful minimalistic quality to them, void of any background. They're all presented in black and white, and everything is stripped away, creating a very interesting relationship between the viewer and the work. In the American West is a project that has oddly followed me around quite a bit in the last couple of years. It was originally commissioned by the Amon Carter Museum of American Art, which is in Fort Worth, Texas, where I live. I know people who went to the exhibition opening in 1985 and got to meet Avedon, and last year I had the opportunity to do a short piece on Laura Wilson, who was his assistant on that project, and I got to pick her brain about it quite a bit. What's interesting is that even though the Amon Carter Museum commissioned this body of work, it has not been shown, to my knowledge, at all in that museum since the opening in the exhibition in the mid-'80s. It has traveled a little bit. I know it was SF MoMA in about 2009, but it has never been presented in that building since. What's interesting is they do have a show up now that is selections from In the American West, and I got really excited about this and wanted to go see it. And last Sunday, I took a trip to the museum, and two things that struck me. One, these images are amazing to see in person. It's like any great photographer. It's one thing to experience that work on a computer screen or see it in a book, but it's another thing to go in and see these huge prints that are mounted on aluminum in the gallery, and it is just absolutely seminal. I mean, I believe it's one of Richard Avedon's most significant bodies of work, and he was a very consistently good photographer, but it is an important body of work. Two things that struck me about this. One, the exhibition is free, and two, they allow photography in the exhibition, and this got me thinking about a little series that I want to do. Many of you probably know that I had a career switch a few years ago to do these videos, and before I did this, I worked in a major art museum for about 7 years. There's a lot that I don't miss about that era, but there are little things sometimes that I do miss, and one was the relationship that you would have working in a museum with an exhibition that would come through. So typically you would start working on these 6 months out, and it could be anything. It depends. If it was a living artist, sometimes this would be video pieces that you would do. Sometimes it would travel to their studio to film stuff. Sometimes it would be older footage that you would be compiling. Sometimes it would be interactive pieces that you would do in galleries. You'd work with curators and educators, and you would spend an enormous amount of time learning a lot and doing a really big deep dive on a body of work. Once an exhibition would open, you'd have the opening, and then it's out there. And even though you're not really actively working on the exhibition once it's up, it was interesting because you would get to spend time with these works that you had already done this kind of deep dive with from a research standpoint. That's one thing I really miss. I miss being able to spend 3 months with a group of objects, be able to go see the exhibition on my way to or from lunch, and really get to spend time with that. And so in thinking about that, when I was at the Avedon exhibition last week, it gave me an idea. One of the things that is very important to me that I do a lot of in the videos that I make is introducing you to not only the significant works in the history of photography or significant works today, but also who are the photographers? What is that lineage that we come from, and who are the big voices working in photography today, and how does that all fit together? And that's something that's very important to me. Now, one thing that I haven't been able to do in a while that I really have been wanting to do is a deep dive on something like the American West. So that is exactly what we're going to do. I'm going to do a little series of videos on In the American West, where we can really start to dig into this and dive in and learn from it, understand the significance of it, understand some of the technique behind it, understand what Avedon was thinking with this body of work, because I think that's where we really start to learn and become inspired as photographers. Now, much like in the first photo assignment, where I challenged you guys to do variations, I'm going to challenge myself to this. So what I'm going to do is probably once a week, maybe every 2 weeks, I'm going to peel back another layer of In the American West for us to learn from and look at. And some of this will probably be going over to the museum. Some of it will be looking at the work, and I'll pull from whatever I can. It's kind of a challenge for me, much like the variations were with you guys. So this is something I'm really looking forward to, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. This exhibition is actually up through July 2nd. If you're thinking about going to the exhibition, hopefully this will give you a context to appreciate the work even more if you do. So I think this is something that's going to be really neat. Now, there's something I actually need from you, and I realize this is going to be a little bit unorthodox, but I think it will be really interesting to see what people say. But let's assume that Avedon were still alive today, and you were able to sit down with him and have dinner or lunch or something. What one or two questions would you have for Richard Avedon? And I know that's unconventional. You can be as serious about that as you want. You can be as funny about that as you want, and leave me a comment. What I want to do is get a little bit of a reading on how familiar people are with Richard Avedon, and kind of a good place to start with this, and what people are curious about, maybe specifically with this body of work or maybe something else. So leave me a comment, and I would love to know what you guys have to say on that. I will have the first of these little series videos up next week. I'm working on it right now, and they'll be once a week, once every 2 weeks, midweek or so. I'll keep you guys posted on what's coming out with that, and I think this will be a lot of fun. If you guys enjoyed this video, please remember to like it and share it with your friends, and as always, subscribe to The Art of Photography for more videos. And speaking of more videos, I'm going to link up to some other videos that I think are very significant of Richard Avedon as well, and I will see you guys in the next one. Until then, later.